All right. Welcome back, everyone, to the agenda with your Missoula County Commissioners. I am Commissioner Dave Strohmeyer. I'm joined by my fellow commissioners and friends, Josh Slotnick and Juanita Vero, and we are delighted to have a special guest today. I guess we always have guests, and they're always special, but this special guest is Svein Newman. He is our Climate Action Program Manager for Missoula County. Welcome, Svein.
Woo! Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for being here. Svein, so how'd you find yourself working for the county doing climate work? I mean, your name has been associated with renewable energy, et cetera, for a long time, but how'd you find yourself here?
Sure, yeah, it's a good question. I'll zoom way out and try and be abbreviated and,
awesome.
and then focus in. So I was born in...
we don't do abbreviation. We just go and kind of...
That's fair. I was born in southwest Norway, in a town about the size of Spokane, but I moved to Montana basically at the beginning of elementary school and mostly grew up on family farmland outside of Billings. And I say that just because I think that both of those things are a part of my origin story and how I come to the work and how they, in their own distinct ways, helped foster a sense of place and love for the land and for community. But I think I really started moving towards this sort of work in particular when I came to college here at UM in Missoula. And after that, I went to work for 15 years for a nonprofit organization called Northern Plains Resource Council.
Yeah, great organization.
Yeah, thank you. Community organization, one of the state's largest conservation and family agriculture organizations. And it was working there that I started to develop professional experience on energy issues, climate issues, and agricultural issues and other things too, right? But as pertains to this job, the energy and climate piece. So I was excited to bring that to the county at the beginning of last year. Today is my 15-month anniversary at the county.
Oh, congratulations.
Counting, 15 years, 15 months. And, I loved my old job because I believed then and I believe now that community building and organizing can be a transformative source of good for our communities. But I also know that local government can be that too. And local government can also be a platform to build community and to help people have their voices heard and get, a lot of positive things done. And we're working on a lot of positive, exciting things too. So I'm really excited to both be in the Climate Action Program and Planning Development Sustainability, but with the county more broadly, because I learn something new every day.
Well, awesome. Do you want to just dive right into some of those exciting things that you're working on?
Sure, yeah. Is there a place you want to start?
At the beginning. No, I don't know.
Let's start with Green Power Program, because it's potentially the biggest, most transformative thing we've ever done in terms of climate and energy. And I don't know, Dave, you were working on this before.
We being Missoula County.
Missoula County. And Dave was working on this before Juan and I were even baby commissioners.
Well, Missoula County, jointly with the city of Missoula, adopted a 100% clean electricity resolution pre-pandemic. I think it was it all runs together after a while.
It was pre-pandemic.
Yeah, it absolutely was, now that you affirmed my suspicion. So what this basically is focused on is, A, recognizing climate change is real, and we need to take concrete actions, even in local government, to do what we can to mitigate climate change. And B, as we look at what we might be able to do as local jurisdictions, the impetus of this resolution was shifting us, and this resolution was focused on the urbanizing area. We decided to be a little less ambitious than I think many of us in our perfect world would like to be, in terms of not focusing countywide, but a chunk that is focused on the city of Missoula proper, the urbanizing area around Missoula, and how can we get to 100% clean electricity and moving away from carbon-based fuel sources. So, pre-pandemic, we started conversations with Northwestern Energy as the regulated utility that we need to work with here in Missoula County and across the state of Montana. And also recognizing that the broader coalition can be to tackle a problem like this, the better. So it was the city of Missoula, Missoula County, and the city of Bozeman. Initially, the city of Helena was at those early discussions, and the community of Big Sky. We met in Big Sky, Montana, I want to say maybe 2018, 19, and started some of the initial brainstorming. And there are a lot of details between that time period and where we are today in 2026. But suffice it to say, I think we're on track to come up with what we're calling a Green Power Program that will not just, and this is an important piece that relates to data centers and what's going on out in Bonner right now, or proposed in Bonner, and we can talk about that later. but we are concerned about bringing new electrons onto the grid, new renewable energy, not just taking credit for what someone is already doing out there in the world and patting ourselves on the back, but creating a new energy resource, renewable energy resource, to the tune of 50 megawatts, I believe, is what we're shooting for. Not as much as we ultimately need in this community, but it's a great start. And at the end of the day, we would be partnering Missoula County, the city of Bozeman, with Northwestern to create a 50 megawatt renewable energy facility of some sort. That could be wind, it could be solar, there could be some battery in there somewhere, just to have the capacity when the wind is not blowing or the sun is not shining. And we're getting close. And
where are we now?
Well, Svein, Phyllis, you've been in the trenches on this, and maybe just paint a broad strokes picture of where we're at.
Sure. Well, sort of broadly speaking, we spent the last period working on sort of the technical programmatic design, legal design, addressing insurance issues or finance issues or those sorts of things. Maybe I'll step back a little bit and say that the goal of the program for subscribers, for consumers, is to be really clear, right? So basically, if you're local government, if you're a business, if you're a Northwestern customer, residential customer, right? If you're a household, that you can tell them, my home or my business uses X amount of electricity, or they can tell you, right? You're not expected to know that number. And I'd like to subscribe that to this new wind farm or solar resource or whatever it is, right? So a fairly straightforward subscription path.
So you could opt in if you choose.
Yeah, exactly. It's opt in if you choose. Doesn't impact any other customers, sort of by design.
Is there going to be an effect on all ratepayers for having this be part of the grid?
There will not. No. So it was a founding principle of this that all of the costs and benefits of the program are kept within the program by subscribers, and so folks want to subscribe their electric use to a new clean energy resource, they'll have the option to do that, and they'll be responsible for that. And it could be when we go out to the RFP stage and build it that it's a great deal, right? There's a chance it lowers people's power bills, but if it raises people's power bills, then again it's a voluntary opt-in program, and people decide whether they or not they want to participate, and it doesn't impact anybody else, and it should be pretty straightforward for them. That said, the reason why I'd sort of offer that as a caveat is it's very complicated on the back end, and so a lot of what we have been doing as staff is that work and those negotiations with Northwestern on sort of the technical side
and the other governments too.
And with the other governments, right? It is a true and equal partnership between Missoula County, the city of Missoula, and the city of Bozeman. But I'm pretty confident that we're functionally there with Northwestern Energy on the sort of programmatic design and legal side.
And does that have to be approved at the PSC?
It does, yeah. So
and for listeners, PSC means Public Service Commission.
Yeah, the first step is we'll bring the proposal before the city will bring it before city council, probably in a joint meeting, and we'll figure that out. But the elected bodies will have to decide, do we still want to offer this program? Kind of here's the terms and conditions. But presuming that you all vote yes, then we would file for review at the Montana Public Service Commission. And I'm pretty confident that we could do that as soon as this fall. So we really are in a position to start moving this forward.
And something else I think to keep in mind for us who are in the trenches on this ourselves, but also for the broader community. Yes, 50 megawatts is not going to get us to where we ultimately need to go, but this is a significant first step. Big step.
This would be 10,000 homes, right? Is that right? What's the stat for that?
Something like that. So there, I'll use a couple of points of comparison, and I don't have the statistic sheet in front of me, so someone will look it up and be like, that's not quite accurate, and you're right. But broadly speaking, the combined electricity use in the city of Missoula is, I think, like 240 some megawatts, right? So it's about a fifth of that. Or another point of context is, I think the latest number I saw for that, the total number of net metered rooftop solar systems in Missoula is like 8.5 megawatts. So this project would be something like 6 times the size of all of the rooftop solar that currently exists in the city of Missoula.
Or
and so
20% plus of all the electricity used in Missoula.
And ideally, it's going to be a proof of concept that can be replicable and scaled up over time.
Yeah, if we can pull this off and it works, we can grow.
Totally. So it'd be great to do another project down the road. It'd be great to have other, community solar and these other tools. And we're not here to say that this is the one and only clean energy solution, but I think it's a really exciting one. It is at scale, and it's designed to be accessible to local governments, to businesses, to residential households.
Yeah,
and not a lot of tools have that sort of variability or versatility.
Up until this point, all the gain that we have made has been on the part of the end user. Like we put solar panels on the roof of the jail, or we super insulate our buildings. This is utility scale, which has never been done before.
Or at least not in Montana.
In Montana, it has not been done before. This is new ground, and getting in as big as 50 megawatts is a really big deal. And it's taken 7 years.
It has taken a long time.
Yeah. Well,
but
congratulations.
there is light there is electricity at the end of the tunnel.
And Svein saying, looks good. We could be at the PSC this fall, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, totally. And that's not to undercut. I mean, as you mentioned, the solar on the detention center, and we can talk about some of those things
all
too.
Those are great.
Because the county has done a lot of incredible things, and of course, a lot of our partners have, and they all add up. But the Green Power Program, because I think my hope is to be able to bring that forward to y'all for consideration within the next couple of months. So it definitely feels timely.
Okay, so stay tuned out there.
Hold me to it. Hold me to it. Everybody.
I was going to say, keep going. What are some of the other projects we're working on?
Sure. For listeners, the Board of County Commissioners recently adopted a carbon neutrality plan for the county. So the county has a goal of working...
The county as an organization.
The county as an organization, correct. That's an important clarification. So the county has a goal of working towards carbon neutrality for the buildings and the fleets, et cetera, that the county manages or county owns, right, of working towards county employee commutes. But really the things that are within the county's sort of control and power and sphere of influence.
Well, tell us what carbon neutrality means. This does not mean we're sitting on the fence, not taking a position.
No, we're neutral.
On carbon.
We're
neutral. Yeah,
that's great. That's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of
jury's not out yet. We're going to wait and see.
I mean, the idea is to get neutral or to zero out your impact on climate change, generally measured in CO2 or CO2 equivalents.
How much carbon are we putting out?
Yeah, and the lion's share of that, or biggest part of that, is working to reduce our own emissions. And the county's been doing great work on that front for a long time. I mean, you mentioned the solar on the detention center. The county has the state's largest rooftop solar array.
Way to go.
I was part of that way back when, and not only was it the largest rooftop solar array, it was the first time any institution had done third-party investing. So it didn't fall entirely on the backs of taxpayers to come up with the initial really high cost of doing a project of this scale. This was an unusual financing mechanism. It's been done in other states, but we were the first to do it in Montana.
Totally. Yeah, no, I think it's a great example. And in terms of scale, first it's going to be like, it's a 432 kilowatt solar array, but that doesn't mean anything to most people, right? Maybe
How many
a better way to
houses
put it is,
do you think
it's about 50 homes
That's
worth
a
of
lot.
solar just on top of the detention center. Right?
And-
So I think
and
that's something to be proud of.
This is really meaningful in terms of our electrical bill at the detention center, which is a city of 400 people that runs 24/7, 365, and even the doors are operated by electricity. This is a huge energy pig, and it has a big flat roof. So it was an ideal spot to make this work. And in order to make use of this third-party investment mechanism I described, the project had to be really big.
Yep.
So this was an ideal fit.
It's an 1,100 panel solar array, and it's forecasted to save the county something like $400,000 across its lifespan. So it was a big upfront investment. It did take creative work on your part, right?
Just
My
to be clear, when you
predecessors,
say
but-
upfront investment, this was not an upfront investment of taxpayer dollars.
Right.
So a third-party investor came up with the money, bought the panels, and is basically selling us power back at the same rate we were buying power from Northwestern back 7 years ago when this started. And over time, that power gets cheaper, and the investor depreciates these panels over time. And when they're zeroed out, they become ours, which is before the end of their functional life. So we didn't ask taxpayers to shell out a whole bunch of money. And at the time the investor did this, there were tax credits available for investing in renewable energy, which the investor was able to make use of.
And
It was a great recipe.
What's the lifespan? 20?
About 25 years.
25 years, yeah.
And solar generally lasts longer than that too. That's just kind of they think about depreciation at like 1% per year. But still, I mean, at 25 years, I mean, these things may be producing for 30, 35. We just don't know, right? And only warranted to a certain amount, and you plan around a certain amount. And that's a very important clarification
for
about
sure.
how it was paid for up front. But the reality is that the county's going to pay it off, but it's going to do it in a way that's actively lowering the county's bills and taxpayer
and meanwhile,
obligations at the same time.
430 some odd kilowatts of electricity are being generated from the sun.
Totally.
Which helps us meet our climate goals, as
Right.
Dave described.
Improves air quality, created economic
All the
development when
benefits.
they were lots of benefits. Yeah.
I think we got sidetracked from the neutrality plan, or carbon neutrality plan.
Oh, sure. So that was just an example of one of the many things that the county's been doing. But I wanted to offer it because it's not to say that the county's just been sitting on its hands between adopting that goal and then adopting this plan. The plan is really an attempt to bring together, to develop, to collate strategies that can be pursued across county departments, and there's strategies around buildings, renewables, energy efficiency. There's strategies around fleets. There's strategies around commutes. There's strategies around procurement or investing. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways that the county can bite off pieces of this and make a real difference.
Is there an example that you're kind of excited about that to help people kind of visualize?
Sure, yeah. So for instance, and the question is, how do you find the seed funding, if you will? And we're sort of looking at various opportunities to potentially do that. But like one of the strategies that's laid out in the plan is exploring, ideally developing an internal revolving loan fund for energy efficiency, renewable energy, those sorts of projects. That's something that the university does and has been really successful, because then they take, if they finance an internal project, then they take the savings from that project, pay it back into the fund. And so they're sort of using their own savings to grow this body that's investing in other future savings. And it takes a while to spin up, right? But it can eventually become sort of exponential. And it's important to note that the carbon neutrality plan doesn't bind the county to, all of the many strategies on many fronts, but rather was developed with the county carbon neutrality team, with folks from all sorts of departments and all over the county to think about, what they might be able to do or would like to explore and tackle. And then sort of undergird that with the math and the science and sort of the technical acumen to say that if we were able to do these things, then that's our path to carbon neutrality, right? And the county will have to make sort of decisions on a case-by-case basis, for instance, about how we pursue things and kind of get scrappy, right? But it's nice to know that there is a path, and to have some of those potential strategies that have been developed collaboratively by different county departments, and really under the lead work and authorship of my colleague, Allie Kane. And so I want to be clear that, one, shout out to Allie. Two, don't want to take credit where it's not due. I mean, certainly I was a part of that plan and a part of that process, but that's really Allie's leadership and sort of a testament to one of my favorite things about working for the county, right? I mean, we talk about these facilities improvements, and the county's got a great facilities department that's really leading that. And so I feel like a lot of my role is to help follow up or research or bring ideas and keep things moving or set agendas sometimes. But it really is a big sort of village team effort, whether that's county facilities or the Green Power Program. Again, this partnership with other communities, partnership with Northwestern. We know that in order to go far, we have to go together.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think, we've got a good team for that. So.
Was there anything that surprised you in that plan process, or surprised you and Allie?
Well, I'll let Allie speak for herself. I will say that I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, sometimes you send a draft plan out on a listserv, and you just sort of expect crickets, and particularly when it's a 60-some page document. And so honestly, what I'm surprised is that people read the thing, right? That people wrote back and were like, oh, have you thought about this? Or can we change that? Or don't forget to add us to the list to think about, when we get to solar or things like that. I think that was, I don't know if that's kind of a surprise, but it was a positive thing for me.
So as we tape this here on the 17th floor of the Agenda Towers in downtown Missoula, regular gasoline's over $4 a gallon and diesel's over $5.
Yeah.
Imagining there are a lot of people who live in Missoula County who are going to be scrambling for ways to cut costs, especially energy costs. We have this home resource hub. Can you describe what sort of tools might be there for people to make use of?
Yeah, so this is another example of the great people who work in this instance across the county, but as I said, sort of the county and our partners. So we know that most of us have things we could do to make our homes more healthy, more comfortable, more cost efficient, right? That we know we can take care of the environment while we take care of our pocketbooks and take care of ourselves. But it can be tricky to know where to start, right? I think think most of us also are busy. You work, you're taking care of the family, you're trying to eke out a couple hobbies, and that's it, right? You kind of fill up your time. And so we're leaving opportunities on the table through no fault of our own as individuals. And I'm that way too, right, in my own home. So that's why it's exciting that the county launched the Home Upgrade Hub. It's at the Ecology and Extension Department out at the GW Marks Exploration Center, which many people know for housing the butterfly house and insectarium.
So somebody went out there. How would they find the Home Upgrade Hub?
Well, I would call first,
good.
just to make sure. But Callie Foster, who works with the Hub, is in that building, has an office there. So the Hub is a no-cost resource to help guide county residents planning home retrofit projects, whether that's home energy assessments to look for opportunities, right? People who are like, I don't know where to start. Help me think about my home. Help me look for things I might bite off. To people who want help talking through particular projects and if they might make sense in their home, right? They're like, man, I've been hearing a lot about heat pump water heaters, and could this be right for me? And let's start there. To people who know what they want to do and just want help finding an engaged contractor, or who want to get a second set of eyes or some advice on navigating rebates and incentives, that sort of thing, to make sure that they're saving the money that they can. So it's really sort of anywhere in that process, from people who are just getting started to people who already know everything that they want to do, but just want to sort of double check that they're grabbing that utility incentive or that sort of thing. It's, like I said, Callie is the point person out there. She does a great job, whether that's in one-on-one consulting, because you could call and set up a time and go and meet with her, but also, it can be through community workshops. She's got a workshop series coming up in May for home energy efficiency retrofits. However you want to, some people want to go to a class and just kind of learn things more passively. It's a little bit like intimidating to set up a meeting and bring details about your own home, and that's fine if that's how you want to do it. And if you're like, I don't want to go to a workshop series, I just want to drill deep on my particular project or my home, the county's got you covered that way too.
Well, maybe we could provide our listeners with a link or a phone number so they can reach out directly to get some of that great advice. Okay. Elephant or data center in the room?
Oh, man. Okay. I just can't hold back.
Oh, geez.
Unleash. So anybody
Josh is on Chat GPT right now.
Right now. Yeah. Hold on. Actually, Claude is going to do this. So if you're hearing this, you may have heard that a data center is proposed out in Bonner. Mm-hmm. Well, way back when, 7 years ago, there was a small Bitcoin operation out there at the old mill site. And this Bitcoin operation wanted to expand. They wanted to expand to a level where they would be using a third of the energy of the entire county, not county organization, county as a geographic unit filled with 120,000 people. We saw this as an emergency. This level of energy being pulled away from our residents by one entity. So we did some interim zoning, and then later we were able to finalize that zoning. And what we said in this zoning was, if you want to operate cryptocurrency mine or a data center, this was 7 years ago. How prescient we were 7 years ago.
Thanks, Diana Mineta.
Yeah, no. Let's take it. No, it was totally Diana Mineta and Jenny Dixon and Karen Hughes. Yeah, we were along for the ride. These fine people said, sure, you're welcome to do a data center in Missoula County, but you need to create your own new renewable energy on site, or if it's off site, it still has to be new green electrons. You have to do that in order to meet the dictates of zoning. So certainly there is a proposal for a data center out in Bonner. Well, in order to meet the rules of our zoning, that data center is going to need to make their own renewable electricity on site or new renewable electricity somewhere else equivalent to the amount that they would use. They also, right now, are proposed to be less than 500 feet away from a residential area, which also does not meet zoning. So they're going to have to go see the Missoula County Consolidated Land Use Board and ask for a special exception to that 500-foot isolation zone, as it were. And they may be successful, they may not be. I can't say. It isn't us. That's the club, as we call it, gets to make that decision. So if you're hearing this, a data center in Bonner is by no means a slam dunk. If they get a special exception to the 500-foot rule, and if they meet the dictates of zoning in terms of creating their own renewable electricity, well, welcome to Missoula County.
And the Board of County Commissioners does not sit in the judgment seat of thumbs up or thumbs down on this. There are these other
you
important
are so
players.
Right. Club makes the call on the 500 feet, and our planning development services will evaluate whether or not they've met the specific rules of zoning. There you go.
Is there anything you'd like to comment on, Svein?
Yeah, what did I miss? What did I miss?
That was the setup for you.
Got it. There we go. No, I think that's exactly right. I mean, you all created the zone, so I wasn't here, right? You can speak to it better than me. But the county zoning around cryptocurrency and data centers really has 4 distinct parts. And one is that data centers or crypto operations can only be in areas that are zoned industrial.
Heavy industrial.
Exactly, yeah. So they cannot just be built in residential areas, for instance. But sometimes zoning districts border each other, right? Which is why we wind up in this situation here. But there's a requirement that it has to be in a heavy industrial area, that they have to recycle 100% of their e-waste through a state-licensed electronic waste recycling facility. They have to meet this new renewable energy requirement, which I could read the section, but I'll name the other part, which is they have to go through a special exception review, like you said, if they are within 500 feet of a residential property boundary, which is the case in Bonner. And so any data center anywhere in the county would have to meet new renewable energy e-waste only in industrial, but in the instance in which they're within 500 feet of a residential property boundary, then they have to go through that special exception review, which brings in things like noise and lighting and traffic. And it's not everything, but there are criteria that they look at.
We didn't do this because we hate data centers. We did this because we want data centers who are here to behave responsibly, as we want everyone to behave responsibly. This isn't an anti-data center zoning. This is a pro-responsible behaviors zoning.
Well, unless we are creating new renewable energy to satisfy energy hogs like this, we are continually finding ourselves set back and reaching our 100% clean electricity goals.
And Svein described well what 50 megawatts would look like, and you described it too in the story of the GPP. Reportedly, so I might have gotten this wrong, reportedly this entity is talking about 3 to 9 megawatts and then expanding possibly to 100 megawatts. This is a tremendous amount of energy.
Yeah, we don't know precisely what size they intend to be. They haven't filed a number with the county at this time, but I have, originally the number that we heard when we talked with them was, they wanted to start around 9 or 10. They did mention at a public meeting out in Bonner that they were thinking about starting at 3.
Then I saw on print a little squiggle line and 100. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, so what they have stated, and I think you see this from the mill manager in the press, that they want to, start at a certain size and then grow as opportunities, resources, etc. allow. And so I think the point of how big might they eventually become is something that I'm not in a position to speculate on, but it is important to note that they have their proposed initial size, whether that is 3 or 10, but are also interested in expanding in the future.
High levels of expansion.
And Josh is absolutely right that this is not a prohibition against data centers in Missoula County, but it is a regulatory mechanism to make sure that they do it responsibly and align with the values of this place.
And this is happening in lots of other parts of the country. We are not alone. We were early adopters on this 7 years ago, but right now these same sorts of rules and regs are happening all over the place. Everywhere in America is having these types of conversations. How do we bring in responsible data centers into our neighborhoods, communities, etc.?
Oh, totally. Yeah, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of local governments that are passing or have passed zoning ordinances that speak to some of these considerations directly and even more indirectly, right? Most communities have rules around noise and things like that would apply. But then, of course, beyond local governments, you have state legislatures looking at these questions. You have utility regulators, like the Montana Public Service Commission, but sometimes they're called public utility commissions in other states, but you have those regulators looking at it too. It's definitely a hot topic.
Yep, absolutely.
And we have a process in place. Way to go,
well
Missoula
done.
County.
Yes.
What would you like us to ask you that we've not asked you already?
Yeah.
Oh,
great question.
I think that this is a pretty good list. I mean, in coming here today, I wanted to talk about the Green Power Program because I think it's really exciting and I think it has the potential to be transformational. I wanted to talk a little bit about the county's carbon neutrality work. I wanted to plug the Home Upgrade Hub. I think there's 2 other things that I want to do. And one of those things is, so far we really talked about mitigating climate change, but the county also has goals around climate adaptation and resilience. There's a plan.
Do you mind describing the differences? Just it's jargon for people who are in the trades.
Of course.
Folks listening may be struggling a bit to catch up.
No, thank you for that. We know that the county has to do everything that it can to mitigate the impacts of climate change, to limit climate change, right? To reduce fossil fuel use, to increase renewable energy use, things like that, right? And we know that the county can't do it alone, but we know that it's going to take communities around the country and the world, everywhere doing, and if we all do our part, we can really blunt the impacts of climate change, right? We can still head off most of it or the worst of it. But we know we're not going to head off all of it, right? Because some of it's already here, and we know that some amount of additional impact is coming, right? We are going to have warmer, drier summers, right? There's no way to avoid that. The question is really to what degree? Because we know we're going to start seeing more extreme heat events in the future that the county's not used to, because we know we're going to start seeing more drought than the county's used to, because we know we're going to start seeing less snowpack or some of these changes, and maybe not every year, right? But over time, then we also have to be doing what we can to develop our own resiliency and plan for that. And the county has it's called Climate Ready Missoula, but it's a plan that exists in the county's growth policy. It was also adopted by the city, but was developed by the city, the county, and Climate Smart Missoula, with the input from stakeholders from all over the community, that looks at all sorts of different impact areas and sectors. So whether that's heat, smoke, water, etc., or agriculture, tourism, right? Like a different way to define sectors to look at impacts and look at strategies. For the county, the Climate Ready plan work is again led by my colleague Allie Kane, so she'd be the best person to talk about it. But the county is both in the process of working with the city and with Climate Smart Missoula on implementation, like assessing how, now that the plan is a handful of years old, let's take a look where, wow, we've been implementing really strongly, and celebrate those successes and capture best practices, and then also identify places where, maybe we need a little bit more support or oomph, right, to do some progress reporting to potentially inform plan updating. All the while, even while we're trying to either as the county or to sort of catalyze with partners, kick off and support implementation efforts as well, because it's not just plan to plan to plan, right? You're updating the plan, but you're also doing the work while you're doing that. And that's an important part of when we think about climate change as a county. It's both how can we help head off the worst of it, and then how can we learn to live with what we can't head off.
So for instance, I'm along those lines, I'm attending a Climate Ready subgroup meeting this afternoon that deals with smoke. And one thing that we have in the past, and I suspect we'll continue to talk about in the future, is, okay, wildfires are a ubiquitous thing during the summer here in western Montana and Missoula County. When smoke rolls into the valley here, what do you do to adapt and to mitigate its effects on human beings? And that could range from, where in Missoula is there a place that you could go basically for refuge to get out of the smoke, or what can you do in your own home to either purchase or do it yourself, sort of home air purifier system to have some cleaner air within your residence to breathe in. So those are just a couple of examples of what's going on the smoke front, at least.
Yeah, that's great. So that was one of the things I wanted to lift up. I think the other thing, I imagine that some listeners will be like, well, okay, that's a lot, but what can I do, or what should I think about, or what are my takeaways? And the reality is, of course, that, do what makes sense to you. Something is always better than nothing. And the way that we solve this problem, or, all sustainability problems, is one bite at a time, right? Mm-hmm. But I would encourage listeners both to, call Callie at the Home Upgrade Hub again, consider the home energy efficiency retrofit series that she has planned for this May. I think the other thing that I would plug that's related, the city and the county and Climate Smart Missoula have a coalition project called Electrify Missoula. And Electrify is having a resilient homes tour on May 16th for people who want to get, some hands-on sort of real-life exposure to solar, heat pumps, resilient landscaping, to start thinking about wildfire mitigation that they could do on their own property, that sort of thing. So, look out for that resilient homes tour on May 16th. And think about the Hub's retrofit series, or just call Callie and go meet with her.
Awesome. Svein, I got a question for you. So I'm wondering about your own sense of optimism. You've been at this work for quite a while, real experience. You were doing this work when our federal government made the single biggest investment in climate of all time, in the $3-point-something billion in climate work. Really, international leaders. And then, bam, climate change is a hoax. So living through both those things, how do you keep your head up, feel optimistic, and keep getting after it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I take a lot of heart in the knowledge that, to some degree, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. I mean, the Department of Energy released a study towards the end of last year, and they reported that to that point in last year, it was like August, September, something like that, something like 90% of the new energy that had been brought onto the grid in the United States was wind, solar, batteries.
Wow.
So even in this new landscape, we know that the choices that are good for our health, that are good for our air quality, that are good for our water are also oftentimes the cheaper, cleaner, faster,
and good for the climate.
more economical choice. And I don't think that any amount of public policy headwinds is going to stop that. Now, conversely, we have to get behind and push as far as we can, right? We have a long ways to go, and we don't have an awful lot of time to get there. But I think that as much as it doesn't feel like it, we really do still have the wind at our backs. And, that's something anyway.
That's great to hear. Thanks.
Well, before we close, can you share with us a good book or additional nugget of wisdom that you've come across?
Sure, yeah.
Arts, poetry, music.
I love that. I'll offer, you say, sort of nugget of wisdom.
Chunk of carbon.
Yeah,
whatever.
I'll steal this from an old coworker, but he said that change happens at the speed of trust, and I'm sure she got it from someone before that. But I think,
for sure.
There's something to be said for that.
That's much
important.
better than the one I'm thinking of. Change happens one funeral at a time.
Oh,
so yours is much more positive.
That's change. Happens
I like that one.
Change happens at the pace of accepted loss.
Yeah,
We gotta let go of how we used to do things.
Right.
Wait, okay. Say it again, Svein, so we don't water it down.
Oh yeah, change happens at the speed of trust.
Yeah, well done.
In terms of good book, I mostly in my free time read what I would put in the category of brain candy. Sort of empty calories, science fiction, fantasy, sort of escapism. Maybe that's part of how I cope too. But it's not all that. And I did recently start a book that may feel sort of more relevant to the subject at hand. It's called Pretty Good House. And it offers sort of a practical, kind of budget-minded framework for building or renovating high-performance homes. Sort of treats the house like an integrated system focused on how things like insulation and air sealing and windows work together. And some of it's fairly technical, but it was also written for a lay audience too, and sort of underscores that oftentimes through smart choices, we can get high performance without high costs, and that a lot of the most impactful things that we can do to limit our climate impact, to limit our environmental impact, to lower our bills, are actually some of the cheapest and most accessible strategies too. So I'm only about 50 pages in, but I'm really enjoying that so far.
Oh, I'm going to totally check that out.
A pretty good house.
Pretty good house. Yep.
Well, it was a pretty good session here.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Better than pretty good.
Better than pretty good.
Thanks, Svein, for joining us.
Yeah, we are so lucky to have you on our team. Thanks a lot for all you do.
I feel lucky to be here. So
Catch you all next time.
Thanks everyone.
Everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to The Agenda. If you enjoy these conversations, it would mean a lot if you'd rate and review the show on whichever podcast app you use.
And if you know a friend who would like to keep up with what's happening in local government, be sure to recommend this podcast to them.
The Agenda with the Missoula County Commissioners is made possible with support from Missoula Community Access Television, better known as MCAT, and our staff in the Missoula County Communications Division.
If you have a question or a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email it to communications@missoulacounty.us.
To find out other ways to stay up to date with what's happening in Missoula County, go to missoula.co/county updates.
Thanks for listening.